This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently. That's okay. Things are gonna be okay.
Ever since Modern Warfare 2019, many of us players have felt over the years that there is something off with Call of Duty. Whether it's the matchmaking in general, sweating like no tomorrow every single game, or even outright manipulation in real time.
First things first!
It's the go-to excuse for players that don't want to look into this type of thing, that it's just server desync, and you're crazy. But oh no, I wasn't satisfied with this answer at all. I know a lot of you aren't. And I'm here today to show you guys that there's people out there that are trying to find exactly what the cause could be, and if real-time damage manipulation, spawning manipulation, I mean the manipulation is endless, we'll get into it, but I've found there's a lot going on in the background that Activision doesn't tell us.
No!
So where should I begin? How can I make this make sense for everybody watching this video? Well, what you're looking at on the screen right now is this program called NetLimiter. And I had made a video prior about this exact program, okay? And telling you guys that I think I had found some answers in how exactly they achieve EOMM. So I'm going to break this down for you guys as best I can. I'm not perfect, but at the end of this video, it should all make sense. Now, does everybody remember the infamous packet burst? And does everybody remember that played Modern Warfare 3 2023, pretty much the entire year? It was like packet burstitis, man. I mean, you just could not get away from it. Almost every single match you played, didn't matter the platform as far as I'm aware, you always had to deal with this packet burst and the packet burst icon up in the top left. To the unbeknownst player, it is what it is, right? It's just a server issue. That's all it is. Well, to me, that's a dead giveaway that something just isn't right with Call of Duty's online service. And again, players think it's desync, but what I really think it is, it's tied to a couple different things. One reason for the packet burst is your game just not running correctly. I've been able to reproduce the packet burst icon up in the top left just by turning down the frame rate.
You don't say.
I do say.
Then defocusing on the window on PC, and then when returning, the packet burst will pop up and then it resyncs everything. It's tied to the game engine physics and the game session running. And another reason for it is the algorithm. The algorithm is flexing its power over the server and what it should and shouldn't do, and that'll cause packet burst. And I think that's why they could never get rid of packet burst.
You don't say.
I do say.
It's not that the servers suck or anything else like that. I mean, yeah, they do have a lower tick rate, but to me, it's the algorithm. It's the algorithm in real time changing the dynamics of the game. So for all you players wondering out there, well, why could they never get rid of the packet burst? This is why. With that out of the way, when I was using NetLimiter, I was really shocked at just how many connections there were going on when you were playing a match. Ideally, you'd want to use a program like Wireshark or something to that effect. Unfortunately, though, you just can't use Wireshark. The game will straight crash to desktop, and instead, you got to use programs like NetLimiter. Now, what you see here, I have labeled as far as connections and what I can discern them to be. I'm sure there's so much more to uncover, but this is all I could discern so far. For comparing and contrasting, here's the recent game Arma Reforger, and as you can see here, it requires one connection to play the game. While you're in game, one connection to play online real time. There's multiple reasons why you would have active ongoing connections in game. Like for example, with Call of Duty, you have your texture streaming. So instead of downloading a game outright and it being this massive file size, they try to mitigate that by downloading textures while you're in game, loading it into your device's RAM, and then discarding it after the match. And those are the connections you see at port 80. Another extra connection you'd expect to see is for the anti-cheat. And obviously its job would be to tattletale on anybody that's actually cheating in game, you know? Makes sense to me. Those good old cheater pumpkin eaters, man. Now real quickly to go over why I believe this to be an anti-cheat connection. If you look online And what an anti-cheat connection usually does, one of the things it does is sends a heartbeat type signal that you can graph on a chart. So let's take a look at that here. As you can see here, that is definitely what this connection is doing. So we're going to go with anti-cheat for this connection. There's actually two. There's another 185 IP address that also does the heartbeat. So you can go with two connections there that have potential anti-cheat properties. Now I'm trying to give Call of Duty the benefit of the doubt here, but there's a couple of things that just don't quite make sense when looking at some of these connections, such as the 185 Demonware connection. It really has no rhyme or reason as to how it sends data in and out. Now, I've played Battlefield and watched the connections there, and when it's an anti-cheat, it's a pretty consistent data flow, and it's very predictable in its behavior. So this 185 connection makes no sense to me. And even more damning for Activision here is the fact that this connection is the same exact connection that holds all the data for your matchmaking potentials. It's the connection used to matchmake you with every other person you see in Call of Duty. And to have it continuing on sending data in the background is highly suspicious. And I really do think this is the connection, the algorithm that influences things within the match in real time. This connection holds all the keys to all the doors in your woes, your highs, your lows in Call of Duty. This is the connection. But to me, this is just so obvious. It's right there in your face. Anybody that understands which servers are which and what they do when you're in game, it just makes complete sense to me that this is what's causing the real-time manipulation. This is what is influencing sending telemetry to the server and stuff, which this is what you would need for real-time manipulation anyways, is this telemetry in real time. Now, if you're telling me, but Fox, this just isn't enough information, look at all the dots and connect them. That's really all I can say to get you to see what I'm trying to show you.
You have to understand, most of these people, many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, they will fight to protect it.
Seems all anybody can do to prove that there's real-time manipulation is show clips and try to explain how it felt to them. And even with Black Ops 6 and the lack of hit markers when you're just outright blasting a person, or you get like way more hit markers than you should, this is a different way, a different vantage point to look at it, right? So this is why I'm doing this.
I'm trying to free your mind, Neo. But I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
Well, what really gets me here is with the 185 Demonware connection, it's a TCP connection, I can find no rhyme or reason with the data it's sending, right? Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Sometimes it'll just be a few bytes of data. Other times it'll be kilobytes of data for like minutes at a time. What I'm trying to show here, it's real simple, right? If they're manipulating things and obviously not telling us, this is how they're doing it. They are doing it server side, and you do have a bunch of extra connections going on in the background. This 185 TCP connection, what really piqued my interest is how it correlates when you're getting kills, and then like it'll stay active for a while, and then sometimes right before you die, all the data just drops beforehand, almost as if it knew you were going to die. I really think this is most likely the connection tied to Call of Duty's engagement algorithm, which this connection then talks to the Call of Duty server that everybody else is connected to, and it dictates what is allowable per player in game and what isn't. And I'm very interested in why a lot of players, like a lot of the players that have dedicated time, are all saying the same thing, which is this game is manipulated, and I myself feel that way. Now, when it comes to the manipulation, I said we were going to get into that. I know most players play on console, but for any of the PC players out there, tell me I'm wrong here, because I really don't think I am. One of the weirdest things that I've come across with Call of Duty and trying to be competitive and trying to figure out what am I doing wrong to make me lose against this 1v1 or make me lose this situation that I was in. And a lot of times it's like my mouse sensitivity out of nowhere just changes. Like, how does that happen? And what's really strange, like if you know anything about muscle memory, basically what happens is you coordinate your muscles over time. From there, all you need is to warm up your muscle memory just a little before playing, I mean, unless you're having a really awful day, then maybe you just can't quite get there. But the average day, you'll get right to where your muscle memory should be and back to the sensitivity that you're used to having. And with Call of Duty, I'll go like 3, 4, 5 games where I'm just on point, right? My muscle memory's tuned in, I'm hot, and then all of a sudden it's like no matter what I do, I'm overshooting my targets. And it's frustrating. And it's always overshooting my targets. And then I'll have to like lower the sensitivity a little. And then the next game I go to, it reverts back to the original sensitivity that I was originally used to, and then I have to bump the sensitivity back up a little. And I'm not talking about field of view changes or anything like that. I use the relative sensitivity setting to where everything feels exactly one-to-one the same, no matter the scope, no matter the field of view. So that's one way that they do it. I really believe they do it. That's just crazy, right? And why would you have to do all that? I mean, why can't you just have an organic experience? It's beyond frustrating. Another way that they like to manipulate the game is, from my point of view, is your actual networking. There will be players that I come across game to game, and sometimes it's just one player. If it's a team-based game, sometimes it's half the team. Sometimes it's the whole team, and sometimes this doesn't happen at all. And that's where you have players that are just ahead of you network-wise. It doesn't matter how hard you try, no matter how much you pre-aim or fire at them first, you're downed. That you can't do anything to combat this player or players the entire match, without a doubt. Outright manipulation. There's no other explanation. Yeah. I know people want to say server to sync, and I'm telling you guys, if it was a server problem, they'd have fixed it. This is an algorithm problem. And of course, you've got your skill-based hit detection and skill-based damage. That's another big one that players say. You think that would be enough to manipulate gameplay in the favor of whoever they choose for engagement, but it goes even further than that with the actual spawn system and pathing of players in-game. This is mostly noticeable in free-for-all, but I see it all the time where if I have an area locked down and the game doesn't want me to win, all of a sudden I don't see anybody until I move and put myself in a position that's at a disadvantage and I'm more than likely going to die. Then all of a sudden a player will spawn. Or another way it'll do it is it'll pincer move you where it has multiple people coming from different paths that it predicted would be the most likely outcome for me to lose. I mean, that's just wild. That's just wild. It's definitely there. If you play the game enough, you can definitely sense what's going on and when things are changing or not as expected, not consistent, which is the biggest underlying theme with this manipulation is consistency. Your in-tune player senses matched with consistency and pattern recognition that tells you everything you need to know right there. So this all ties in to this 185 connection. I believe that that is the algorithm on that connection, which then talks to you, the client, and the actual server hosting the game, and everybody else, and it's using its algorithm to tweak the game however it decides for engagement purposes, we'll say. I mean, who knows exactly what the reasoning is, but it's definitely there, and it's definitely doing something. So, I know a lot of you like to focus on first-hand gameplay. Well, this is what's going on behind the scenes. And that's even more fascinating in my opinion, because you're looking at the offending algorithm in and of itself on an IP address. Now, you may be wondering, how do I know which connection is which? Let me explain. So the whole reason I found NetLimiter, at the time, Modern Warfare 3 2023, I was really tired of sweating. I was really tired of SBMM. Like, really, that's all I thought was going on at the time. I kind of understood EOMM, but I didn't have my head all the way in, right? Like, looking at everything. And I seen all these players saying, well, you know, use a VPN. That's the best way to get around this. So I started looking into VPNs and wasn't really interested in buying those SBMM off VPNs. And there's various ones. I can't remember the names. That doesn't matter. But basically, I started searching YouTube and the net to try to find people that have used like a VPN they have already purchased and using that for your SBMM off, right? Because I had already had a VPN for years, so I didn't really want to pay for 2 VPNs. Yeah, I know, what a cheapskate. That's the whole reason I got interested in making my own. So that started my journey with NetLimiter. I came across this guy on YouTube. The cat's name was Dagirtai Gaming. And this guy had made these videos right around the time that Modern Warfare 2019 was really popular, because he was showing gameplay of Modern Warfare 2019's Warzone 1 in the background, and how he was getting SBMM to give him better lobbies using his own VPN that he had bought. It's not like this pre-configured VPN, okay? Trust me, this is a long story, but this is going to all make sense. So let me just keep going here. Anyways, this guy, I'll link him down below. He was showing people how companies like SBMM Off were even achieving this diversion with SBMM where you could make it to where you weren't having a bunch of tough players all the time by taking your connection and synthetically making it seem to Call of Duty that you're like in a far away off location, and therefore there's not very many players. Therefore, skill matching is not a high priority. Instead, finding a match quicker is the priority. And that's basically how you were able to trick it with a VPN. And I honestly don't think this works anymore. But then again, maybe these VPN companies like SBMM Off have found ways to like stay valid to keep that money coming in from customers. Nonetheless, I don't know. I haven't bought from them. All I've done was try to make my own from this guy, DeGearTide Gaming. And so he was showing how you can use this program called NetLimiter to trace the connections from Call of Duty, okay? And it came down to this. He realized that there was these servers that started with 185.xx.xx.xx. I mean, I'm not going to sit here verbatim the IPs, but it's a 185 IP, okay? And this 185 IP seemed to be the matchmaking server, or as Call of Duty and Activision would claim, that's their demonware matchmaking servers, okay? So he figured this out by studying the connections and watching when data was going back and forth when searching for a match. And when he was searching for a match, he found that these servers were the ones that was particularly involved with matchmaking. Okay, so what? Big deal. Well, he was able to make his own custom open VPN script with his already provided VPN to create an SBMM Off type VPN. And this is how I learned about which connections were which in Call of Duty. He was later able to confirm this by looking at the custom VPN scripts with like a notepad. There's a program called Notepad++, and you can look at OVPN extension name, file name is what it is. But you can open them with Notepad++, and then you can see all the IP addresses that it wants to mitigate through a VPN tunnel. So this is how I figured out which servers were which, okay? This is where I figured out that, okay, these servers that are 185.whatever are demonware servers, and they always identify themselves from Ireland, which, whatever, I guess. It's kind of weird it's all the way in Ireland when you're in the United States, but that's where they have it geolocated to. Secondly, I just started studying like what was going on in the background when I could. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to sit there and screen cap 2 screens and then go back and just watch the footage when you could be playing games or something. But I had the heart and determination to just keep looking into it and trying to find patterns and seeing what I could see. But at the time, you know, it had never occurred to me that maybe if I tried messing with these connections while I'm playing in game, maybe I could get it to do something, right? I always just wanted to VPN the connections, but after I quit Call of Duty this year, I mean, I was straight up going to give up on it because I'm so over it, as many of you are. For me, the majority of it's just the EOMM, SBMM nonsense. Like, it's just too much. So I started playing Modern Warfare 3 again, okay? And when I did that, I was doing the usual where I was looking at these connections like, man, I know these are the connections responsible. I just know it. If real-time manipulation is a thing, there's a way to prove it. And I kept thinking, they wouldn't have that coded on the client side like game itself, would they? I mean, you'd think somebody would be able to crack the encrypted data that they code the game with, especially sensitive information like that. But, you know, hackers and coders are crazy like that. They can always figure it out over time, and eventually they would get exposed. The data would be figured out, and people would be like, yep, see, it's right here. So my school of thought was maybe they're hiding this on the network side, like on the server side. Like if real-time manipulation is the thing, then they're hiding it. Obviously, they're not telling us. And if they're hiding it, where are they hiding it? So when I was looking at these 3 connections, well, you got 4. You got your main server connection. You got your Demonware's matchmaking connection, which I found it really odd that it stays active and communicating with you while you're playing in-game real time. And then you've got another Demonware server connection. I'm not sure why they have two. I guess redundancy. Not 100% on that. It's not like I'm a networking engineer. Okay, guys, I'm just a hardcore Call of Duty fan trying to put it all together. And then you've got another connection that identifies geolocation, like with the same server that you're connected to in game. So when most of the time in games, I'll connect to this server in Elk Ridge, Illinois. And there's this secondary connection that only sends a data, like one data byte or two, like back and forth, like pretty much the whole game. And from further research, I've gathered that that is an anti-cheat measure type connection. And then the Demonware servers are the ones actively messing with you. Like, let's say they don't want you to do well, like, you know, rigged. Again, a lot of this is theoretical, but it's not like they're going to come out and just give us the answers, you guys. You got to understand. Look at how long it took for them to even mention skill-based matchmaking and give us our data set papers and why they feel it's justified to do the things that they are doing. So let me know what you think. I hope I explained it well enough exactly how I came to learn about this and what made me theorize with exactly what's going on behind the scenes. I don't see anybody else talking about this. Let me know. This is your boy Fox. Catch you in the next one. Peace.